It was a little before 8 when I pulled the car into the garage at Mama's house. Forgetting I'd locked the outside doors, I had to fish around in the car for the keys. The house seemed eerily quiet. I looked around as if it was the first time I'd been there. I walked slowly through each room, taking it all in. The sadness in my heart was about to explode. I thought about all the things I'd miss about Mama, and I suddenly realized all the first I'd go through without her in my life. I'd been planning my wedding when we found out Mama had cancer, but she insisted the wedding go on anyway. I regretted that decision from the time I said, I do. Before the wedding, I explained to my fiancé that I didn't know what kind of wife I could be since I had to be there for Mama. He said he understood, but within 6 months, it was over. His insecurities overwhelmed him. He couldn't handle the fact that I was always gone, working or taking Mama to treatments. My so-called home life was hell on earth. To relieve both of us of the pain, I divorced him. Although she'd been there for my first wedding and divorce, there were still so many things in my life that she'd never be there to witness. Then I thought of the special days I'd experienced without her: Mother's Day, her birthday, my birthday, Thanksgiving, Christmas. I had no children, never thought I wanted to be a mother myself, but if I changed my mind, I'd have to do it without her. One of the conversations we'd had when she was sick was about me having a baby. She told me she wanted me to do that and I'd make a good mother. I told her it wasn't something I could conceive of, especially without her there. I believe that made her sad. The memories in this house, both painful and happy, flooded my mind. Walking through the breakfast area, I remembered the peeping Tom we used to have. Seeing him was creepy, and we never knew when he'd be there. I also remembered a particular Christmas meal. A year after I moved out, I came home for Christmas when Mama was at work. My mother wasn't much of a cook, and since I was, I did all the holiday meals. I walked into the house and saw ham sitting on the breakfast table. It was cooked, and it looked wonderful. I called Mama at work and asked if she changed her mind about the menu. We were supposed to be grilling steaks that year. It was 80 degrees at Christmas. It was one of those joys of living in the South. You just never knew. She was confused by my question, and I told her about the ham. You're kidding, right? She asked. No, did you do this? It looks wonderful, I replied, proud that she cooked this beautiful ham herself. Don't touch it. I'll be right there. She hung up the phone and was home in 20 minutes. In the kitchen, we stared at the ham for a moment, and then we both burst out laughing. There we stood over that piece of meat like it was a bomb. I picked up the platter and saw Mrs. Holliday's name written on a piece of tape. Any good Southern woman puts tape on the bottom of their best serving dishes and bowls so they get their dishes back when the event's over. Mrs. Holliday's son was Mama's peeping Tom. He was a little slow and lived with his mother. He hadn't actually been peeping on Mama. He was attracted to the ambulances in our yard. Mama managed the ambulance service in addition to her hospital duties, and whichever ambulance wasn't in use stayed at our house. Oh, damn. Do you think I should call her? She asked me. And say what? Mrs. Holliday, is your ham at home? We both laughed again. I hadn't been able to cook another meal in that kitchen without thinking of the ham and smiling. Running my hand over the table, I could hear her laughter. Every inch of every room held some kind of memory. I decided the memories would still be there at a better time and headed for the shower. Just as I stepped in, I heard the phone ringing. I decided to let the answering machine get it, even if it was Aunt Tanya. I stood in the shower for a long time, letting the water run over my shoulders and back. The hot water on my tense muscles was very welcome. Once my fingers were pale and pruny, I decided I would probably need to get out and get in touch with Mr. Simmons about the hearing. When I stepped out of the shower, the phone rang again. Jesus, wait your turn, I thought. The ringing stopped, and I got dressed. With wet hair, I finally decided to listen to the messages on the answering machine. There were 14. The first 3 were from some of Mama's friends just checking to see how I was doing. Message 4 was Mr. Simmons. Message 5 was Rhonda saying she'd tried me at grandmother's and Mrs. Culpepper told her I'd gone home. Message 6 was the same, but from Patricia. 7 through 14 were from a Mr. Warren Beasley saying it was imperative that he speak with me as soon as possible. Warren Beasley. Warren Beasley. Why does that name sound familiar, I muttered. Well, Mr. Beasley, you'll just have to wait a damn minute. I was pouring myself a glass of tea when the phone rang again. Oh my God, I screamed and stormed toward the phone. What is it? Picking it up, I was irritated when I said, hello. Could I speak to Elizabeth Wallace? A woman asked. Speaking. I have Mr. Warren Beasley needing to speak with you. Could you hold while I get him on the line? Who or what is Warren Beasley? I've gotten 7 messages from him this morning, and it's not even 10 o'clock yet, I said. Mr. Beasley is an attorney. Please hold. Before I could say anything else, she had me on hold. Attorney. Was Tanya ready to give up? I sipped on my tea while I waited for Warren Beasley to pick up. I heard a click, then a man's voice. Mrs. Wallace. Yes, Mr. Beasley, this is Lizzy Wallace. You're a persistent person, I said. Yes, ma'am. I've been needing to speak with you. Well, if you've had time to call me 7 times in under 2 hours, you must not have too many other clients. Then it hit me. Warren Beasley, a slimy little underhanded attorney with the greasiest head of hair I'd ever seen on a human being. I'd met him a few times in the hospital where Mama had worked. He was a glorified ambulance chaser, and Mama despised him. No, ma'am. On the contrary, I'm quite busy, but as I understand it, I'm on a time limit with you, he said. A time limit for what? What can I do for you? I represent Miss Tanya Dumas, and she has informed me that you're in possession of her belongings. Then, Mr. Beasley, I suggest you get your facts straight. I was getting angry. Well, Mrs. Wallace, I'm calling to give you the opportunity to forfeit the items before we pursue this in the courts. Really now. Then tell me what exactly it is I'm supposed to be in possession of, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. I'm sure there's an ambulance or 2 out there you need to get to chasing. There's no need for you to be rude. My mother, do you remember her? Yes, ma'am, I do. Well, she died on Friday, and I buried her on Saturday, and today, Monday, you're blowing my telephone up to tell me you have a client, my mother's sister, who wants to sue me already? How exactly would you like for me to act towards you, sir? Were you the one who helped Tanya get guardianship of my grandmother? Yes, ma'am. I helped Miss Dumas with that. Is nothing sacred to you, Mr. Beasley? Couldn't you have advised your client to wait before pursuing this? I was furious now, trying not to scream at this man. It's not my place to determine the appropriate time for my clients to pursue a case. Let me tell you, there's a place in hell for people like you. Now again, let me ask you, what is it that I'm in possession of? He ran through all the items Tanya had pulled out the night of the card game, the same ones that were in the bank vault at that very moment. I believe these are all the items due to my client, he concluded. Mr. Beasley, I've taken note of these items, and I'll get in touch with my attorney, Mr. Bill Simmons. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to discuss this matter with you. If you thought you were going to call here this morning and get an immediate okay, then I hate to disappoint you, unless you want to make a deal. Now, Mrs. Wallace, there must be a way that we can work this out. Sure there is. Are you representing Tanya this afternoon in the hearing over my grandmother? Yes, I am. Then do you want to make a trade? The items on your list for guardianship. I'm not at liberty to make that decision without discussing it with my client. Well, you can find her at my grandmother's. Why don't you discuss it with her and give me a call back? I'm sure you know the number by heart. I hung up the phone on him. My first instinct was to get in the car and drive to grandmother's to confront Tanya, but my gut told me this would not be a good idea.